السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Respected professors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I have met people who I have consumed their writings and their good works before coming to this conference. And alhamdulillah, all these will be contributions to a small university which I decided to join after my graduation from International Islamic University years ago. After getting scholarship from the Board of Governors of UAE those times, we were introduced that this scholarship is meant for minority Muslims to be built up their capabilities, then going home for the constructions of Ummadic buildings in their own nations. And I'm one of the targeted personalities from Thailand who got this chance during those Albakri was still president of the International Islamic Universities. Thank you very much. And every time I met Professor Kamal Hassan, I thank him for nurturing myself and also students who are finally becoming administrators of Yala Islamic University, which now I try to refer to as Fatoni University. I will discuss. Brothers and sisters, I was so happy just now when Brother Habib mentioned sisters and brothers. Normally we always hear the word brothers and sisters in Islam, but just now he mentioned sisters and brothers. And I will try to use mind map instead of using PowerPoints, because you can see linkages of ideas, how we construct. I do have how many minutes? 25 or 20? Okay, anyway, you can just stop me anytime. But depends on me whether I'll stop it or not. Thank you very much. I'll try not to violate that one, the rule of the game. The role of Fatoni University in community development. The word Fatoni is derived from the word Fatana. In the story I will discuss that, why we use the word Fatana instead of the word Patani, which is connotations of political glory of the old Patani state, Fatoni Darussalam. And because of that, I would like to get you to witness that. Just yesterday I confirmed with the director that National Security Council has approved officially the name. But the process is going to be submitted to the Bureau of Higher Education, then finally to Ministry of Education. Then, inshallah, within this year, we are going to change the name from Yala Islamic University to Fatoni University. Just look at the prologues, and I have some photos for you to see the burdens of Muslim Ummah there in a minority Muslim countries, whereby you can see people who are preference of independent situation, independent status, most of them having a little request of autonomy. But we are trying to say, not saying that we are not going for jihad, but we try to change their mindset from jihad harbi to jihad enemy, which is very difficult. Look at that. And we have to use all the time textual understanding in order to come up with a contextual explanation. Well, you can see again, I don't have to use time here, but you can see how the photos shows. And then you can see that sometimes, to build a university and using the word Islamic University in Thai nations is not really easy things. And this is sometimes, the contradiction does not happen among Buddhists and Muslims, but even Muslims themselves. Where is the direct? From Pondok to university, we have taken so much time from changing the idea of preserving our Pondok system, which is the best base for our university. I don't deny that Pondok has full contributions to the establishment of our university, but we have to change the platform of working, the platform of contributing to our national building. So that's why you can see that this is our main problems, because people are trying that you are number one, I am number two, then why you are number three or number four? So this is all these are our problems. Anyway, finally you can see that why Bangkok cannot solve the problem of the South. You can see that why normally central polity cannot really, think for the people of having the same size of shirts for everyone in Thailand for 67 million. Well, then we go next. Okay, this area of discussion for maybe 5 to 6, 7 minutes is about Pondok to University. It's a crucial phenomena from moving people from having tops, having kupiah, living in small huts in Pondok or concentrates. Finally they change to madrasah, but still in this kind of area. But when we change to university, we have 3 phases. The first phase I call it Makkan period, Makkiyah. Because we started with, okay, let me thank Brother Ahmad for visiting our first campus 15 years ago. With the inaugurations of the first campus, Jala Islamic University.
College.
Yeah, Jala Islamic College. It was a college. Because the criteria of being a university in Thailand are more or less 5 to 10 criteria. Then we have to meet up all those requirements. This is the first. The second is we are thinking of having only Islamic college there in Thailand. But finally the Minister of Education said, why don't you put Jala? Because it is situated in Jala province. Who knows in the future Chiang Mai Islamic University? Who knows in the future Bangkok Islamic University? But after 50 years we realized that no single emerging Islamic college, because it is difficult, very difficult financially, principally, conceptually and everything. So this period of Pondok to university, which I call it Makkiyah period, it was the first and only Islamic college that time. And the only faculty we do have, oh I'm sorry, it was not clear. The only faculty we did have that time is Islamic studies. Because most of the graduates from Azhar, from Saudi Arabia, from Jordan, and from many other countries, we just only think that transforming the teaching of Pondok at that level to teach at the tertiary level, that's it. And then, after some times, we move to you can see Sharia, Suluddin, and Arabic language. But the way we taught Arabic language that time is just for reading the text, reading the Quran, reading the tafsir. Which is different when we move to Medina period, we move to the second campus, which I'll show some photos after this. When we move to this campus, the area of the space is bigger, and you can see numbers of faculty more. We started with the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. I'm sorry if you misunderstand the word liberal arts. In Thailand, Kulit Adab is interpreted as liberal arts in English, Thai English. So I was questioned what is liberal there in some seminars and conferences. Okay, you can see that when we move to university status, when we move to the Medina period of the university's construction, you can see that we started offering political science. I was the first dean and the first teacher of political science in a small college. I mean, then we moved to university. It is difficult to urge professors and big people from Bangkok to come and join us. It takes me years to go and convince them. Finally, I could teach Islamic political system in Chulalongkorn University, where the dean itself, who is now the chairman of the Human Rights Commission of Thailand, Professor Amara, she said, Thai students studying political science in Chulalongkorn University, which is the best university in teaching political science, mostly scholars coming from Harvard, Yale, Cambridge, Fletcher, all those kind of things. But they didn't teach Islamic political system. Their student who is going to be governors in Muslim provinces don't have any idea of Islamic thinking, of political science, or political Islamic system. So finally they invited me to be there, and since then many Muslim professors started coming to our university to join with us and to collaborate in teachings. Then you can see that we started also with public administration, because the idea of the university is to create what? To create a district officer who can share the session in district meeting. At the same time, when we go to Jummah prayer, they can lead the imam, they can lead the prayers, they can read khutbah. We could do it, alhamdulillah, after 8 years. We could have our students who graduated from our department. He can be a district officer, well accepted by the officers there. At the same time, he could run the praying activities and also khutbah in some of the mosques there, alhamdulillah. Then we moved to economics, because people are talking about Islamic bankings, and many have, we have Professor of Economics, Professor Hanif. What's the problem there in Thailand is that the demand of Islamic economic understanding or all this kind of thing, finance and banking, the demand is very high. You can see non-Muslim businessmen coming to Islamic banks, coming to Islamic cooperatives, wearing shorts, wearing pants, coming to apply for the membership of Islamic financial system. But we do not have enough craftsmen, we don't have enough workers. That's why now Islamic Bank in Thailand has to recruit non-Muslim to work in Islamic banking system, because of lacking of this kind of people who are trained because of this kind of thing. Then we go for business administration, and we started offering English language, we started Malay language and Arabic language. But I put Arabic language here because when we taught Arabic language in Faculty of Islamic Studies, it was for reading the text, understanding the text. But when I teach in my faculty, Arabic language is for knowing the world, reaching the world, for community development. So this is the way that we're different. Then we started Faculty of Education, or let me tell you, the way that we are trying to attract our brothers from Middle East. Before that, there was a saying from Thai side saying that, Middle East brothers are sponsoring insurgents, the separatists. But now we try to change the mindset of the government, requesting brothers from Middle East who has enough funding to give us, but not for buying weapons, but building building the faculty. So the Faculty of Islamic Studies, we got it from Qatar. The Emir of Qatar gave us money for that. And when it comes to my buildings, we try to convince the Kuwaiti government that if you want to help Muslims in southern Thailand, let's help us in building economic human capacities. So finally they gave us the buildings of my faculty. Then when we go to the third faculty, Faculty of Education, brothers from Emirates came. First Khairat happened. They saw the Qatarian building, they saw the Kuwaiti building, then the Emirates says, no, we want one building. So we gave them Faculty of Education. Then Qatar comes back. Then they asked us, what is the next building do you want? Said, Faculty of Science and Technology. So they gave us this Science and Technology building, which is the highest, it was 100 million baht, which is the biggest amount of money given by foreigners to Muslims in the South. Well, you can see that we have information technology, applied chemistry, and applied biology. The status of university, when we move from Islamic college, Kuliah, to Jamia, you can see the way that we are expanding the territories of knowledge. We started being comprehensive universities. Rather than teaching Allah Ta'ala, Qala Rasul, Al-Kalamu, Wal-Lafdul Murakabu, like we studied in Pondok. Well, how many minutes more? I'm running now. Then when we go to the third phase of the university, which I try to get the term, but 5 minutes, okay. Internationalization period. So we are moving from Yala Islamic University to Fatoni University. Some argued in our Senate meeting, our council meeting, I'm one of the member of the Senate meeting, they argued that why you throw away the word Islam. And there is one member who is not Muslim said, why don't you keep the word Islam? Because there is only one Islamic university in Thailand. We said yes. But when Lankasuka was transformed to be Fatoni, when Islam came to Fatoni, the name of that area was Lankasuka. Then with the coming of Islam, the name of Lankasuka was changed to Fatoni Darussalam. It means that the word Fatoni itself connotes the meaning of Islamicity of this religion. That's why when we changed the name from Islamic University, Yala Islamic University, we just put the word Islam in itself, Fatoni University. And inshallah, please dua for us, because this university is not for me in Thailand, for everyone who have La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah, because it is 100% waqaf. Okay. When we go for the new period, we will start with health science campuses, which we have Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Nursing, and Faculty of Pharmacy. It's very challenging for Muslim Ummah in Thailand and southern Thailand. Because if you look at the statistics, 3 provinces of southern Thailand which are now in conflict, you can see that we are number 76, 74, 75, and 76, the bottom degrees of education. But when Thai scholars are talking about science and Islam, they will never see these things complementary to each other. That's why our task is to introduce the Faculty of Medicine. And we do have more than 50 medical doctors who are now being, they have given their names to be promoted, to be medical professors in the future and come and join us. And for Faculty of Nursing, Sister Sophia, who is here, is in charge of Faculty of Nursing. We do have a lot of Muslim nurses, but not meeting the requirements to become nurse lecturers. So inshallah, in the future, this Faculty of Medicine, Nursing and Pharmacy will meet the requirements of our new hospital, which is being built now. Inshallah, next year, 120-bed hospital will finish. And I hope that for the Middle East patients who now going to Bangkok can come to our halal hospital in the future. Okay, we have another concept for the third period is Madinah as-Salam. Because when we look at the Fatoni of today, with the governance of Thai polity for 100 years, we don't see the real Fatoni in the sense of Islamic quality of life. So we come up with the idea of Madinah as-Salam, where we can have a health campuses, Patani Jaya Hospital, ASEAN Trade Center, Islamic Center, and Kampung Salam. In Kampung Salam, no cigarettes, no, all this kind of thing. Well, then, sorry. Okay. Now I go to the community development projects or programs that we have had so far. The first is promotions of integrated of knowledge. Yesterday we have discussed Islamization of knowledge, spiritualization of knowledge, but fortunately in Thailand, the Ministry of Education is in the quest of integration of knowledge. So the main policy of the Thai government now is to ask every teacher, starting from nursery level to PhD level, how to integrate the knowledge. So the Buddhist scholars told me that they don't know how to integrate with the Buddhist teaching and philosophy, which is not the same like us that we have tremendously discussed yesterday. So the way they are doing is that to integrate science and social sciences, to integrate drawing and health sciences. But our case of Islamization or our case of integration of the social sciences and Islamic knowledge is the best case in Thai educational system now. And we are promoting this because it is in lines of national policy. So we are not in contrast to the national policy, but the government is very happy with this. Even when Sister Sophia is trying to propose to the idea of the nursing faculty, they are asking us, what are you going to do with nursing faculty in terms of curriculum? When we give them the idea, say, okay, this is the idea that they want. Then promotions of Jihad Almi. Okay. The mechanism is, we have As-Salam Institute, which is established by the university, and we do have the regional coordinators, mostly our alumni who is working for us, and we have the district coordinators, so they, even though they go back to their hometown, but they will still working with us, using the idea that I learned from UA. 3 minutes more? Okay.
2 minutes.
2 minutes more. For the networking, with the community development program, we have staff peace. This idea can be jointly collaborate with Professor President Muslim, Southern Thailand University Peace Network. All 5 universities in the south are coming together, and Brother Kriya is the secretary for that. And then we work together in order to get the blueprints of Southern Thailand Peace Building Scheme. The second is South PSPA, Southern Thailand Political Science and Public Administration. I'm the vice president of that. And then we have also Interreligious Council as platform for our rector, Dr. Lutfi, who is the chairman, co-chairman of Inter-Religious Council in Thailand, which comprises of 5 religions. In Thailand, we do regard 5 religions officially: Buddhist, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, and Sikhism. So these 5 religions is co-shared by our rector, who is Saudi graduate from Riyadh, who may be understood in somewhere else as Salafi or whatever, but he's the peace builder in southern Thailand issue. Anyway, so I have no time. Then we have also SBPAC, Southern Border Administrative Center, which is the body who is now controlling and administrating the southern part. Our university is academic partner of how to search the best solutions for working with the people there. And Research Council, I was years ago proposed through my research as the appropriate governance of southern Thailand. And it was the first of its kind in its history. After 100 years fighting, it was the first model of governance sent to the government. And finally, after that model, which before that, people are afraid of, because once they know that you are Muslim, you are Malay, proposing this idea, you will be called separatist. But I tried to work with non-Muslim researcher who is very famous there in Thailand. He's Buddhist, working together. Finally, we submitted this research finding to National Security Council. They accept that, and then it is now expanded by about 15 models being studied now by the government. Well, just a bit more. Albakri, boleh bagi saya sikit? ASEAN Isnet that I discussed with you with now. Before coming here, about 2 weeks ago, the Ministry of Education asked me to do one project, Islamic Studies Networking in Southeast Asian nations, ASEAN. They want me to conduct ASEAN Islamic Studies Network in order to bring Islamic studies policy makers to come together. Then they want to learn from those 9 countries, be minority countries like Singapore, Philippines, and majority countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei, to be learned by Thai government for the better management of Islamic studies in our country. The first group. The second group is scholars. They want scholars because we have discussed a lot of things to the government. They said no. But now if we invite scholars from, for example, from Qatar Foundation, from Oxford, Professor Ramadan, Professor Kasule, Professor Smavaka, Professor Habib, go to Thailand. This conference will be organized in Thailand. Scholars on Islamic studies will discuss issues. Then Ministry of Education will take notes and will bring issues to be implemented. This has to be finished by my management after 2 years. Then the last is, after getting this scholars, we bring practitioners to go down. Well, I just want to introduce shortly what AMRON is, ASEAN Muslim Research Organization Network, where we talk to the government. Mostly we talk on feelings, on this kind of thing. But by having AMRONs, now we ask our Muslim researchers in Thailand, be in the north, be in the south, be in the central, be in anywhere, bring your findings, and we create platforms like the place we went yesterday. Every year we will have platform for presentations of research in southern Thailand, in northern Thailand. Then we will bring that findings of researchers to be submitted to the government directly. And we will invite them to come and be with us. Well, I conclude with this kind of, we have no time. You can have my presentation and study it by yourself. Then I come up with the prologue, with the epilogues. The idea of the university is to bring down the wall, to be the bridge. This is the idea of my rector, myself, and all the interpreters, which is very hard. But we have to bring down the wall in order to say Rahmatul Alameen for everyone, especially the Buddhists. Then, so this, we are trying to work with everyone who wants to come for peace, and then we will try to ask anyone to do whatever he is willing to do. This is the idea. We want everyone to be winners, not only Muslim or Buddhist. And inshallah, I end up with this and throw your feelings toward this university to say that this is not the university of Muslim in southern Thailand, but the university of everyone. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for the enlightening presentation, and now I would like to introduce Professor Albakri Ahmad. The floor is yours.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. إخوة الكرام والأخوات الكريمات أحييكم تحية الإسلام وتحية المباركة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. وعليكم السلام. Firstly, please allow me to express my thanks to Professor Dr. Usman Bakar for inviting MUIS Academy to support this conference and for me to participate in it. I am truly humbled by the gathering of distinguished scholars. And therefore, I'm not sure whether this particular presentation fits into this whole conference, but I'll try. This presentation does not seek to deal with ethics as ethicists have done, or with theology or moral philosophy, or philosophy of ethics as theologians or moral philosophers have done. This presentation is also not about ethical principles and theory, which has been sufficiently addressed by Professor Tariq Ramadan, Professor Umar Kasuli, Professor Usman Bakar, and Professor Mulyadi Takhtanegara. For those of you who have not been introduced to me, I'm actually a cybernetician by training, so I'm not a theologian. My job in MUIS requires me to formulate social religious policies to build a Muslim community of excellence. Therefore, the title of my presentation hopes to give you a self-explanatory overview of the intent to harness diversity in Singapore, which is a very open society. And this diversity will become more pronounced within the community and within the larger Singapore society. So I've chosen a title, Let a Thousand Flowers Bloom. If Tariq was described as the durian of the scholars, and Professor Usman Bakar as a mangosteen, I like to think I'm a rose, but never mind, that's a different story altogether. Right. Let me just quickly go through the outline. I'll set the context for the issue at hand and outline the concerns and research questions, after which I will then map the religious orientation terrain of the Singapore Muslim community. We will use several frameworks, key Islamic references, in order to derive ethical principles. And finally, I will talk about some operating principles, how we do things in Singapore, inshallah, by way of applying ethics to harness diversity within the Muslim community. As many of you would know, that the Singapore Muslim community is relatively homogeneous. For a long time, we have been mostly Malays, and if we do have Chinese becoming a Muslim, like yesterday, Yang Mahormat Pihin mentioned, it is almost perceived to be Masuk Melayu because of the Malay majority. The Muslim community constitutes 14.7% of Singapore's total population. That's quite a sizable percentage. 91% of Muslims are Malays, and basically we adopt the Ahlus Sunnah wa Jama'ah Sunni traditionalism. which has been part of this region for centuries. And while the core remain intact, we have evolved over time due to global developments and changing social conditions, including, social media. And every Singapore kid will probably have a Facebook, we have a Twitter, and the first thing they do after they have their breakfast, they tweet to their friends. So it is totally an open society. Everywhere is almost wireless, so it is really becoming quite a different social condition. We believe that diversity within the religious landscape too will also become more pronounced as we open our doors, and we have many other Muslim groups coming, including we have a sizable Turkish Muslims now in Singapore, the Bangladeshi Muslims. Of course, Indonesian are settling in Singapore too, and are actually integrating with the larger Singapore society. So they are not transient workers, they're actually making Singapore their home, and therefore have different religious needs, and of course, religious, sort of different practices based on what they have brought from their homeland. I just want to quickly, I'm not sure you can see this, but we'll try. I just want to quickly share with you what we've done. We've tried to understand the diversity of the Muslim society by what we call do a terrain mapping. And again, this is work in progress. But what we've done is we've actually tried to locate the events and the key trends and issues of Islam in Singapore pre and early 20th century, and then the pre-independence, and then the post-independence. And again, I'm sorry for the choice of colors. This gets a bit darker, so you probably won't be able to see it. But let me just quickly talk about early 20th century, where one of the most important events is basically the debate between Kaum Muda and Kaum Tua. And of course, the formation of Jamia in 1932, which becomes the largest Muslim organization in Singapore. And of course, the former president, Sheikh Abu Bakar Maidin, is still very active. And of course, the formation of MUIS later on at post-dependence. So again, there are many other organizations that have been created in order to fulfill the Muslim community needs. Just want to locate, Pergas was formed in 1957. Pergas is the Association of Muslim Scholars and Religious Teachers in Singapore. And of course, Muhammadiyah and Perdaus and many other NGOs were formed just before independence. And at post-independence, we have, of course, the Islamic revivalism, the sort of the trend was returning to the Quran and Sunnah. And of course, then there's an attack of bid'ah practices on communal zikr, on Mawlid, and so on and so forth. So even then, there's already this almost a polemic that's going on in Singapore. In 1980s, we had a lot more interesting happening. We had, HBI, the Himpunan Belia Islam, which is almost like the ABIM in Singapore. Many of them were very attracted to the Iranian Revolution. Many of them went over to Iran and came back and become Shias. So we now actually have Malay-born Shias in Singapore too, in our midst, which is very different from some other parts of Southeast Asia. Many students also start pursuing studies overseas because of becoming more affluent. Our students went to Saudi Arabia. The Malaysians started to send their students to Iran, and then we have Muslim groups and Muslim students going all over Middle East to study. We now have students studying Islamic or theology, or what's called theology in Turkish, studying in Turkey. So we do have Muslim students studying all around the world. And that's actually being celebrated because we actually do not want to have a homogeneous Islamic community. So it is almost quite deliberate that we have students in Yemen, in Libya, in Syria, in Jordan, in Turkey, to enrich the religious life of the Singapore Muslim community. So I just want to give you some sense. And then of course we have groups coming up because they came back from overseas, they have a certain orientation, they have a certain inclination, and they form their own little groupings. So what is the concern? The concern is that, interestingly enough, because there are many offerings of religious classes and teachings and program, there's a sense of increased religiosity. Our young are yearning for religion, they're coming back to Islam, and also the formation of more group identities. They have now formed alumni of the Syrian students, for example. So those who went to Abu Nur and Mahat Fatah, and of course we have the Azharis, and of course we have the students who come back from Medina. So there are many group identities that's actually now emerging, and getting a sense of identity is important, but how do we actually operate within group identities and the dynamics at play is also quite important. We also have emergence of new religious groups, as I mentioned. Yesterday I was talking to Professor about the Dinar and Dirham group, for example, and these are all new emerging groups coming up to Singapore because of our open borders. And like I say, the diversity is going to be quite pronounced. And through social media, the contestation of ideas. People feel upset about things, and they actually put it through social media, and there's a long thread of discussions. But when you look at the discussion, it can take different trajectories, including way personal and sometimes quite demeaning as well. So people are becoming a bit more brave. With the cloak of anonymity, they actually say things which sometimes can be quite dangerous. And these signs of hostility and conflict may occur as a result from sense of tribalism and in-group bias. There's a whole study of this by Wilson on this particular notion. What will happen is that if we don't handle it, if we don't look at it very carefully, it may affect the prevailing climate of social cohesion and religious harmony, which is actually a very important trait of Singapore. We value, we jealously guard and protect religious harmony and social cohesion, because it's important for us as Muslims, but also as Singaporeans, right? Particularly when we look at things around us and in the region. So everybody is actually doing their part to maintain religious harmony and social cohesion, because that's a very important developmental agenda for us, and therefore Muslims will have to play a part as well. So what are the research questions? We want to ask ourselves, how diverse is the current religious landscape? And here we will study the historical evolution, the key transformations, the orientation, the level of engagement issues, and what are the potential tensions between these groups. But more importantly, the central question for the study, or at least the work that I do, is how can diversity be harnessed so that it becomes a source of strength for the Muslim community. And that is why I use the title, Let a Thousand Flowers Bloom, right? Of course, you also need to do the gardening.